The plane ticket sat on my nightstand like a death sentence wrapped in glossy paper. Air Canada. Business class. Departure in 14 days. Lizabeth had placed it there herself, her fingers trailing across the bedspread as she smiled that terrible smile of hers. Everything is arranged, she had said, her hand resting on the small swell of her belly. Our new life awaits, Eniola. Now, in the dead of night, I stared at that ticket until my eyes burned. Shui slept 2 rooms away, dreaming innocent dreams in Egyptian cotton sheets. He had no idea we were prisoners dressed in silk. The mansion breathed around me, its walls holding secrets that could bury us all. I thought of Adi constantly. Where had Lizabeth sent him? Was he alive, hiding somewhere in Lagos, or had her definition of silence been more permanent? The questions ate at me like termites in wood, invisible but devastating. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My heart hammered as I opened the message. The child she carries may not be her first alive. Look deeper into Canada. The boy didn't die. A friend. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone. I read it again. And again. The boy didn't die. But I had seen the death certificate myself, stamped and official. Unless that too had been a lie. Another piece in Lizabeth's endless chess game. I deleted the message immediately, paranoia flooding my veins. She monitored everything, my calls, my movements, probably even my thoughts if she could. But someone out there was still trying to help me. Someone who knew Lizabeth's secrets ran deeper than I had imagined. The next morning, Lizabeth summoned me to breakfast on the terrace. The Lagos sun blazed mercilessly, but she sat cool and composed in a white linen dress, her jewelry catching the light like warnings. You look tired, darling, she observed, pouring me coffee I didn't trust. Bad dreams. Just excitement, I lied, forcing my voice steady. About Canada. About our future. Her eyes studied me, dissecting every micro-expression. Then she smiled, satisfied. Good. Because I've decided we should leave earlier. Next week instead. The political climate here is becoming unstable. Better to secure our position abroad before complications arise. Next week. 7 days instead of 14. My throat tightened. What about Shui's school? His friends? All arranged. His school in Toronto starts sessions year-round. He'll adjust. She sipped her tea delicately. Children are remarkably adaptable. Don't you think? The way she said it made my skin crawl. As if Shui were another possession to be relocated, not a 12-year-old boy being ripped from everything familiar. That afternoon, while Lizabeth met with her lawyers, I found myself in her study. I shouldn't have been there. The risk was insane. But desperation had made me reckless. Her desk was immaculate, every paper aligned perfectly. I searched quickly, quietly, my ears straining for footsteps. Bank statements. Corporate documents. Immigration papers. Then, in a locked drawer I jimmied open with a letter opener, I found it. A photograph. Faded, creased from handling. A young woman, barely recognizable as Lizabeth, holding a baby boy. On the back, written in her precise handwriting, David Jr. 6 months. Before everything changed. My breath caught. The boy in the photo was healthy, smiling. But more than that, there was something in young Lizabeth's eyes, something almost human. Almost vulnerable. It vanished so completely from the woman she became that seeing it felt like discovering a ghost. I heard heels clicking in the hallway. My heart stopped. I shoved the photo back, closed the drawer, and slipped behind the heavy curtain just as the door opened. Lizabeth entered, speaking rapid French into her phone. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. She moved to her desk, rifled through papers, then paused. Her head tilted slightly, like a predator sensing disturbance in the air. "I'll call you back," she said into the phone, ending the conversation. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could see her through a gap in the curtain, standing perfectly still, scanning the room. Her instincts were predatory, honed by years of staying 3 steps ahead of everyone. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she left. I waited 5 full minutes before emerging, my shirt soaked with sweat. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't think. The photograph haunted me. If the boy had survived, where was he now? And why had Lizabeth told everyone, including the courts, that he was dead? She noticed my distraction at dinner. "Brother, are you okay? You've been weird lately." "I'm fine," I lied, ruffling his hair. "Just stressed about the move." Lizabeth watched us from across the table, her fork poised elegantly. Eniola takes his responsibilities very seriously. It's one of the things I love about him. Her eyes locked with mine. He would never do anything to jeopardize our family. "Would you, darling?" The question hung in the air like a noose. "Never," I whispered. But in my pocket, my phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Terminal 3. Departures level. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Come alone. Last chance." I told Lizabeth I needed to pick up some items for the trip. She studied me for a long moment, her eyes calculating, before nodding permission. "Take Victor with you," she said, referring to her personal driver and undoubtedly her spy. "I'd rather go alone," I said, keeping my voice light. "Clear my head before we leave everything behind." Her lips curved. How sentimental. "Fine. But be back before dinner. We have the embassy appointment at 6. I drove one of the mansion's less conspicuous cars, a black Mercedes that still screamed wealth but wouldn't draw as much attention. The Lagos traffic was brutal, a chaos of Okadas, Danfos, and cars jockeying for position. I kept checking my mirrors, paranoid that Lizabeth had sent someone to follow me anyway. Murtala Muhammad International Airport loomed ahead, its terminals bustling with travelers. I parked and made my way to Terminal 3, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. Departures level. 2 p.m. I was 10 minutes early. The terminal was packed. Families saying goodbye, business travelers rushing past, the constant drone of announcements echoing overhead. I stood near a coffee shop, trying to look casual while my eyes scanned every face. Then I saw him. Adi. He was thinner, with a beard he hadn't had before, wearing a faded jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. He looked like a man who'd been running. When our eyes met, he gave the slightest nod and walked toward the restrooms. I followed, my mouth dry. The bathroom was thankfully empty. Adi checked the stalls quickly before turning to me. "You came," he said, his voice hoarse. "I thought she'd killed you." "She tried." He pulled up his sleeve, revealing a bandage on his forearm. "Her people jumped me outside my flat. Told me to disappear or disappear permanently. I chose the first option barely." "Then why risk coming back? Why contact me?" Adie's eyes were haunted. Because you're carrying her child. Because your brother is in her house. Because I knew your father, and I owe him a debt I can never repay. He grabbed my arm. Eniola, you have to listen to me. The boy, David Jr., he's alive. The world tilted. What? Lizabeth's first son. He didn't die. She hid him, gave him to foster care in Canada when he was 3. Changed his name, erased every connection to her. Your child won't be the first she's used as a pawn. Why would she do that? My voice cracked. Why abandon her own child? Because he was sick. Not terminally, but chronically. Required constant medical attention, expensive care, and most importantly, took attention away from her ambitions. Dave, her ex-husband, wanted to focus on their son's health. Lizabeth wanted to focus on her career. So she made a choice. I felt sick. Where is he now? The boy. Toronto. He's 17 now, lives with a foster family, goes by the name Marcus. He has no idea who his real mother is. Adie pulled out a folded paper from his pocket. This is his address. If you're going to Canada anyway, you need to find him. He deserves to know the truth, and you deserve to know what kind of woman is carrying your child. I took the paper with trembling hands. She'll know. She watches everything. Then be smarter than her. Adie glanced at the door nervously. I have to go. There's a flight to Accra in 40 minutes. I'm disappearing for real this time. He gripped my shoulder. Your father was a good man, Eniola. He tried to expose what Chevron was doing with those fertility trials. That's why Lizabeth has been watching your family. She wanted to control the narrative, control anyone who might know what he knew. What did he know? That the trials weren't just about fertility. They were about genetics, selection, creating designer children for the wealthy elite. Your father found evidence. He was going to go public. Then he died in that car accident. Adie's eyes bore into mine. It wasn't an accident. The words hit me like bullets. My father. My brilliant, idealistic father who I'd mourned for 10 years. Murdered. By the woman now carrying my child. I have to go, Adie said again, backing toward the door. Be careful, Eniola. And whatever you do, don't let her isolate you in Canada. Once you're on her territory, with no one who knows you, no support system, you'll disappear just like David Jr. did. He was gone before I could respond, slipping into the crowd like smoke. I stood in that bathroom, the address burning in my pocket, my mind reeling with revelations I could barely process. When I finally returned to the car, I sat behind the wheel for 20 minutes, unable to move. My father. The boy who wasn't dead. Lizabeth's web of lies stretching back decades. I had known she was dangerous, manipulative, cruel. But this was something else entirely. This was systematic, calculated evil. My phone rang. Lizabeth. Where are you? You've been gone 3 hours. I forced steadiness into my voice. Traffic was terrible. I'm on my way back now. The embassy appointment is in 90 minutes, Eniola. Don't be late. Our visa approval depends on presenting as a stable, committed family unit. I won't be late, I promised. As I drove back through Lagos's chaos, the address in my pocket felt like both a weapon and a lifeline. Marcus. David Jr. A boy who'd been erased because he was inconvenient. I thought of the child growing in Lizabeth's womb, my child, and terror gripped me. Would my son or daughter suffer the same fate if they proved difficult? If they demanded too much? If they threatened Lizabeth's perfectly constructed image? The mansion gates opened as I approached. Guards nodded. The prison welcomed me back. Shai was playing basketball in the driveway, his laughter ringing pure and innocent. When he saw me, he waved enthusiastically. "Brother, watch this shot." I stopped the car and got out, watching as he took a three-pointer that swished through the net. He pumped his fist in victory, grinning wide. In that moment, he looked so happy, so free, completely unaware of the chains being fitted around him. "Nice shot," I called out, my voice catching. Lizabeth appeared on the balcony above, elegant in an embassy-appropriate outfit. "Eniola, come get dressed. We leave in 45 minutes. I looked up at her, this woman who'd orchestrated my father's death, abandoned her son, and trapped me in gold-plated hell. She smiled down at me, her hand resting on her barely visible baby bump. "Yes, darling," I said. "I'm coming." But as I climbed the stairs, I made a silent vow. I would get to Toronto. I would find Marcus. I would learn the truth. And somehow, someway, I would break free from Lizabeth's web before she destroyed everyone I loved. The question was, would I survive long enough to do it? The Canadian embassy in Lagos was a fortress of bureaucratic efficiency. Air conditioning hummed, computers beeped, and behind bulletproof glass, visa officers held the power to grant or deny dreams. Lizabeth moved through it like she owned it, her confidence absolute. We sat in a private consultation room, a privilege arranged through Lizabeth's connections. The visa officer, a middle-aged white woman named Mrs. Patterson, reviewed our documents with mechanical precision. "So, Mr. Adewale," she said, looking at me over her glasses, "you're relocating to Toronto with Mrs. Trump's son for business expansion purposes?" "Yes," I said, my prepared script flowing automatically. "Chevron Industries is opening a North American headquarters. I'll be serving as Chief Operations Officer for the Canadian division." It was a lie, of course. I had no such position. Lizabeth had simply created the title, generated fraudulent employment contracts, and manufactured an entire career for me on paper. To the embassy, I was a rising executive. In reality, I was a kept man being transported to deeper captivity. "And you're expecting a child together?" Mrs. Patterson's pen hovered over the form. Lizabeth's hand found mine, squeezing gently for the officer's benefit. "Our first. We're very excited." Her smile was perfect, warm, maternal. I wanted to vomit. "Congratulations." Mrs. Patterson made a notation. "And your brother, Shai Adewale, he'll be accompanying you?" "Yes," I said. "For educational opportunities." His guardian status was transferred to me after our parents passed. More lies stacked on lies. Shai's guardianship had been transferred, yes, but through legal channels Lizabeth had orchestrated without my input. Papers I'd signed without reading properly, trusting her guidance. Another chain I hadn't noticed being fastened. Mrs. Patterson's eyes flicked between us, assessing. This was the crucial moment. Visa officers were trained to spot fake relationships, marriages of convenience, fraud. One wrong gesture, one moment of hesitation, and the entire house of cards could collapse. "How did you two meet?" she asked, her tone casual but her gaze sharp. Lizabeth answered smoothly. "At a charity gala 3 years ago. Eniola was volunteering with an education non-profit. I was immediately drawn to his passion for helping others. She turned to me, her eyes soft with manufactured affection. I knew that night he was special. The real story was darker. I'd been working as a coordinator for a youth literacy program, barely making ends meet. Elizabeth had approached me after my presentation, offered funding for the program, then gradually inserted herself into my life. Dinners, conversations, opportunities that seemed too good to refuse. By the time I realized I was being groomed, engineered, and shaped into her ideal partner, it was too late. "And you, Mr. Adewale?" Mrs. Patterson prompted. "Love at first sight?" I forced a smile. She was unlike anyone I'd ever met. Brilliant, accomplished, generous. I felt very fortunate when she showed interest in someone like me. That part was true, at least. Elizabeth was unlike anyone else. Most people had consciences. The interview continued for another 30 minutes. Questions about our plans in Canada, our financial stability, our ties to Nigeria. Elizabeth answered most of them, her performance flawless. She had documentation for everything: bank statements showing obscene wealth, property deeds in Toronto, enrollment confirmations for Shai's private school, letters from Canadian business partners I suspected didn't actually exist. Finally, Mrs. Patterson stamped our documents. "Your visas will be ready in 3 days. You can collect them here or have them couriered to your residence." "Courier, please," Elizabeth said. "We have much to prepare." As we left the embassy, Elizabeth was radiant. 3 days, she said, gripping my hand. "Just 3 days until we leave all this chaos behind." I said nothing. In my pocket, the address Adi had given me felt like it was burning through the fabric. That evening, Shai cornered me in my room. He looked troubled, his usual cheerfulness dimmed. "Brother, do we really have to go?" he asked quietly. I heard some of the guards talking. They said Madame Elizabeth is running from something, that the board wants her out of the company. I pulled him close, speaking carefully. "Where did you hear that?" "I'm not stupid, brother. I see how tense everyone is. How she has those men in suits coming at night for secret meetings. And..." He hesitated. "I heard her on the phone yesterday. She was speaking French, but I caught some words. She said something about eliminating the threat and permanent solutions." My blood ran cold. "She, listen to me very carefully. When we get to Canada, things might be different. Strange. If I ever tell you to run, to leave without me, I need you to do it. No questions. Can you promise me that?" His eyes widened with fear. "Brother, what's happening? What is she?" I wanted to tell him everything. About Elizabeth's dead son who wasn't dead, about my father's murder, about the poison vial that still sat hidden in my belongings. But Shai was 12. He deserved whatever innocence he had left. "She's someone very powerful who doesn't like losing control," I said finally. "Just promise me. If things go wrong, you run. Only if you come with me." "Shai." "No." His voice was firm beyond his years. "You're all I have left. If you stay, I stay. We're family." I hugged him tight, this brave boy who had no idea he was being used as leverage against me. Elizabeth's insurance policy wrapped in a child's trust. The next 2 days passed in a blur of packing and preparations. Lizabeth orchestrated everything with military precision. Movers came for furniture she'd purchased in Toronto, sent ahead to furnish our new home. Electronics were catalogued and shipped. Documents were sealed in waterproof containers. And through it all, she watched me. Constantly. As if sensing the shift in me, the crack in my facade. Her hand would find my shoulder at random moments, her voice soft in my ear, "You seem distant, darling. Not having second thoughts, are you?" "Just overwhelmed," I'd reply. "It's a big change." "Change is good," she'd say. "Change means growth. And we have so much to grow into." On the final night before our departure, Lizabeth hosted a small farewell dinner. Business associates, a few carefully selected friends, all gathered to wish us well. I played my part, smiling and accepting congratulations while inside. I plotted escape routes I knew didn't exist. Late that night, after the guests had left and Shai had gone to bed, I found myself alone on the mansion's rooftop terrace. Lagos sprawled below, a city of broken dreams and impossible hope. Tomorrow, I would leave it behind. Tomorrow, the cage would close completely. Beautiful, isn't it? Lizabeth's voice came from behind me. I hadn't heard her approach. I never did. She moved beside me, her belly more pronounced now at 4 months. In Toronto, we'll have a view of Lake Ontario. Not quite as chaotic as Lagos, but beautiful in its own way. Peaceful. "Is that what you want?" I asked, unable to help myself. "Peace." Her eyes slid toward me, unreadable in the darkness. "I want control, Eniola. I want a life I've built precisely as I designed it, with no interference from small-minded board members or opportunistic rivals. And I want a family that reflects the image I've spent decades crafting." She placed her hand on her stomach. "This child will have every advantage. The best schools, the best connections, the best future money can buy." "And if the child doesn't want what you've planned?" The question escaped before I could stop it. Lizabeth's smile was cold. "Then I'll teach them to want it. Just as I taught you." The admission was so casual, so honest in its cruelty, that I couldn't speak. She turned back to the view, her profile carved from marble in the moonlight. "Get some sleep, Eniola. Tomorrow starts our real life together. No more distractions, no more complications. Just us, building something extraordinary." She left me there, alone with the Lagos night and the crushing weight of my reality. I thought of Marcus in Toronto, 17 and unaware his mother was about to invade his city. I thought of my father, silenced for knowing too much. I thought of Shai, sleeping peacefully while being transported into danger. And I thought of the child growing inside Lizabeth, my son or daughter, innocent of the monster who carried them. Tomorrow, we would board a plane. Tomorrow, the escape would become exponentially harder. But I had 3 things Lizabeth didn't know about: 80's information, Marcus's address, and a growing certainty that I would rather die than let her destroy another generation. The poison vial in my pocket pressed against my thigh, a reminder that sometimes the only way to kill a monster was to become one yourself. The airport was chaos wrapped in procedure. Lagos's Murtala Muhammad International swarmed with travelers, their lives intersecting briefly before scattering across continents. Lizabeth moved through it all with serene authority, her security team flanking us like a presidential convoy. Shai clutched his backpack, his eyes wide as he took in the massive departure hall. Despite everything, he was excited. To him, this was an adventure, a chance to see the world beyond Lagos's familiar borders. I envied his innocence even as it broke my heart. "First class, Madam Trumpson," the airline representative said, her deference absolute. "We've prepared the private lounge for your comfort." Of course she had. Lizabeth's wealth opened doors others didn't know existed. The first-class lounge was a sanctuary of leather chairs and expensive liquor, far removed from the masses cramming into economy. Shoei immediately gravitated toward the buffet, loading a plate with foods he'd never tried. "Slow down," I told him gently. "The flight is 14 hours. Pace yourself." He grinned, sauce on his chin. "Brother, have you seen this? They have real chocolate cake. Not the dry ones from the market." Lizabeth watched us from across the lounge, sipping sparkling water, her expression unreadable. A younger man in an expensive suit approached her, speaking quietly. She nodded, then dismissed him with a gesture. Her phone rang constantly, each call answered in clipped tones and multiple languages. "Business doesn't stop just because we're relocating," she said when she noticed me watching. "The board is already circling, hoping my absence means weakness. They'll learn otherwise." "You're leaving the company?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "Temporarily. I've appointed Claudette as acting CEO. She's loyal, competent, and terrified enough of me to follow orders exactly." Lizabeth's smile was sharp. "In 6 months, once the Canadian operations are established and this pregnancy is safely delivered, I'll return and remind them all who built Chevron from nothing." The PA system crackled. "Flight AC 873 to Toronto now boarding at Gate 12. First-class passengers, please proceed." This was it. The point of no return. I could feel Shai's excitement, Lizabeth's satisfaction, and my own suffocating dread like physical presences. The address in my pocket seemed to pulse with urgency. Marcus. David Jr. The key to understanding what I was really facing. The plane itself was luxurious beyond anything I'd imagined. Our first-class pods were essentially private rooms, with beds that reclined fully, entertainment systems, and more space than my childhood bedroom. Shai's pod was between mine and Lizabeth's, his nose pressed to the window as Lagos fell away beneath us. "Look, brother. You can see everything." I looked. The city sprawled brown and gray and green, a familiar chaos I was leaving behind. Somewhere down there, 80 was hiding, if he was still alive. Somewhere down there, people lived normal lives, with normal problems, free from the golden prison I'd been trapped in. Then the clouds swallowed us, and Nigeria was gone. The flight attendants treated Lizabeth like royalty. Champagne appeared immediately, though she declined in favor of juice. "For the baby," she said, touching her stomach with a tenderness that would seem maternal to anyone who didn't know her. I couldn't eat. The meal they served, elaborate and expensive, tasted like ash in my mouth. Shoei had no such problems, working his way through 3 courses with teenage enthusiasm. Eventually, exhausted from excitement, he fell asleep in his pod, his face peaceful. Lizabeth appeared beside my seat, having moved silently from hers. "You should rest," she said. "You look exhausted." "I'm fine. Iniola." Her voice dropped to that dangerous softness. "I know you're processing everything. The move, the baby, the changes. It's overwhelming. But you need to understand something." She leaned closer, her breath warm against my ear. "Everything I do for us. For our family. The sacrifices I've made, the hard decisions, they're all to ensure we have the best possible life. I wanted to scream. To demand how abandoning a sick child qualified as sacrifice. How murdering my father was a hard decision. How trapping me and Shai was for our benefit. But I swallowed it all, kept my face neutral. I know, I whispered. Thank you. She studied me for a long moment, then smiled. Good. Get some rest. When we land, there will be media. I've arranged a small press opportunity at the airport. Nothing major, just establishing our arrival. Media. Of course. Chevron CEO relocates to Toronto with growing family. It plays well, creates goodwill, establishes us as invested community members. She stroked my cheek with one finger. Just smile and let me do the talking. She returned to her pod, and I was alone with my thoughts and the plane's engines humming beneath us. Somewhere over the Atlantic, suspended between continents, I felt the full weight of my situation. I was traveling at 500 miles per hour toward a future I didn't choose, carrying secrets that could destroy me, and responsible for a brother who trusted me completely. I must have slept eventually, because I woke to the captain announcing our descent into Toronto Pearson International. Shai was already awake, his face pressed to the window again. Brother, look. There's snow. I peered out. Canada spread below us, white and brown and grey, so different from Lagos's perpetual green and brown. The city came into focus, orderly and clean, its buildings arranged with geometric precision. This was our new cage. The landing was smooth. As we taxied to the gate, Elizabeth checked her makeup in a compact mirror, adjusted her jewelry, and transformed into the public version of herself, warm, gracious, slightly vulnerable with her pregnancy visible beneath an elegant coat. Remember, she said to me, we're excited, optimistic, grateful for the opportunity. You're the supportive partner, I'm the visionary CEO, Shai is the bright future. Everyone plays their role. Immigration was expedited. Our paperwork was pristine, our story unchallenged. The immigration officer barely glanced at us before stamping our passports and welcoming us to Canada. Just like that, we were residents, legally sanctioned to remain. The arrival hall opened before us, and immediately I saw them: camera crews, reporters with microphones, photographers with long lenses. Elizabeth had undersold it as small press opportunity. This was a media event. Mrs. Trump's son. Welcome to Toronto. Is it true Chevron is investing $3 billion in Canadian operations? How are you feeling? When is the baby due? Elizabeth handled them all with practiced ease, her smile radiant, her answers quotable and friendly. She positioned me beside her, her hand in mine, the portrait of a successful couple starting fresh. My partner Eniola and I are thrilled to be here, she told the cameras. Canada represents opportunity, innovation, and values aligned with Chevron's vision. We're not just bringing business, we're bringing family. She gestured to Shai, who waved awkwardly at the cameras. This is about building roots, contributing to the community, and growing together. A reporter pushed forward. Mrs. Trump's son, there are rumors the Chevron board is forcing you out. Any truth to that? Elizabeth's smile never wavered, but I felt her hand tighten on mine, her nails digging in slightly. Unfounded gossip from competitors who wish they had our market position. I'm expanding operations, not retreating. Next question. The press conference lasted 20 minutes. By the end, I felt hollowed out, my face aching from forced smiles. Shay looked dazed, overwhelmed by the attention. Only Elizabeth seemed energized, feeding off the spotlight like oxygen. A black SUV waited outside, its windows tinted. The driver loaded our luggage while Elizabeth made final comments to lingering reporters. Then we were inside, pulling away from the airport, and Toronto's winter landscape opened before us. "That went well," Elizabeth said, reviewing footage on her phone. "We're already trending on business news sites. Perfect start." I stared out the window as we drove, noting street names, landmarks, anything that might help me orient myself later. The city was vast, cold, and utterly foreign. Somewhere in this sprawling metropolis, Marcus existed, unaware that his biological mother had just arrived. "Where's our house?" Shay asked. "Rosedale," Elizabeth answered. "One of Toronto's most prestigious neighborhoods. You'll love it." The house, when we arrived, wasn't a house at all. It was an estate, 3 stories of modern architecture and floor-to-ceiling windows, situated on a lot that seemed impossibly large for a city property. Gates closed behind us electronically. Security cameras dotted the perimeter. Another prison, I thought. Just colder and more isolated. "Welcome home," Elizabeth said, her hand on her belly, her smile triumphant. And I realized with crushing certainty, she'd won. She'd transported us across an ocean, isolated us in a foreign country, and positioned herself as benevolent benefactor rather than captor. Who would believe me if I tried to escape? Who would care about a kept man complaining about luxury? That night, in my assigned bedroom, 3 doors down from Elizabeth's master suite, I finally pulled out the address Adie had given me. Marcus Thornton. 247 Broadview Avenue, Apartment 3B. I entered it into my phone's map. 40-minute drive from our new house. Close enough to reach. Far enough to be dangerous. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I would begin planning my approach. Because if Marcus held answers about Elizabeth's true nature, about what happened to her first son, then he was the key to everything. I just had to reach him before Elizabeth realized what I was doing. Toronto in February was a knife made of wind. I stood outside our Rosedale estate 3 days after our arrival, watching my breath make clouds in air so cold it hurt to inhale. Shai had adapted quickly, already making friends at his expensive private school, his laughter echoing through the house when he returned each afternoon. To him, this was paradise upgraded. Elizabeth had thrown herself into establishing her Canadian presence. Meetings with investors, tours of potential office spaces, interviews with local business media. She was everywhere and nowhere, a whirlwind of calculated charm and strategic positioning. Which meant, for the first time since meeting her, I had something precious, unsupervised time. "I'm going to explore the city," I told her that morning over breakfast. She looked up from her tablet, her eyes assessing. "Explore. Get familiar with Toronto. You're busy establishing operations, Shai's in school, I should learn to navigate our new home." I kept my voice casual, practiced. Maybe visit some bookstores, cafes. Get a feel for the neighborhoods. Her gaze held mine for 3 heartbeats. Then she smiled. "Of course, darling. Very sensible. Take the Audi, GPS is already programmed with useful locations. Be back by 6. We have dinner with the Kensington Group investors." The Audi's GPS was certainly programmed, likely with tracking software that would report my every movement. So I took the subway instead, leaving from Summerhill Station, paying cash for a day pass, becoming anonymous among Toronto's commuters. The address was burned into my memory. 247 Broadview Avenue. According to my research, it was in Riverdale, a mixed neighborhood of renovated homes and aging apartment blocks. Not wealthy but not poor. Exactly where you'd hide someone you wanted forgotten. The building was a 3-story walk-up, its red brick facade tired but maintained. I stood across the street for 20 minutes, watching, learning its rhythms. People came and went, an elderly woman with a shopping cart, a young man in a courier uniform, 2 teenagers smoking on the front steps. Apartment 3B. 3rd floor. I could see the windows from my position, curtains drawn against the winter cold. I'd rehearsed various approaches. Pretend to be a social worker? A long-lost family member? Simply knock and hope for honesty? Each option felt inadequate, dangerous in its own way. If Marcus knew who Lizabeth really was, he might panic. If he didn't, revealing his mother's identity could destroy him. A woman emerged from the building, middle-aged, carrying grocery bags. She struggled with the door, and instinct made me cross the street to help. "Thank you," she said, her smile genuine. "These Toronto winters make everything harder." "No problem," I said, holding the door. "Do you live here?" 20 years now. You looking for someone?" I made a split-second decision. "Yes, actually. Marcus Thornton. I'm an old friend of the family, just in from out of town." Her expression shifted, became guarded. "Marcus doesn't get many visitors." "Family, you said?" "Distant family. I'm trying to reconnect." The lie felt heavy. She studied me for a moment, then softened slightly. 3B. But he's usually at work this time of day. Works at the library downtown. Main branch on Yonge Street. "Thank you," I said, meaning it. The Toronto Reference Library was a massive concrete structure in the heart of the city. Inside, it opened into a soaring atrium, multiple floors of books spiraling upward. I found the information desk and asked for Marcus Thornton. "He's in cataloging," the desk attendant said. "3rd floor, East Wing. But he might be on break. Want me to page him?" "No thank you. I'll find him." The 3rd floor was quieter, the energy more studious. I wandered through rows of books, my heart hammering, until I saw him. A young man, 17 or 18, sitting at a desk sorting books. Dark hair, pale skin, features that echoed Lizabeth's bone structure but softened, more human. He looked up as I approached, his expression polite but questioning. "Can I help you?" This was it. The moment I'd been building toward. I could walk away, leave him in ignorance, protect him from the truth. Or I could shatter his world. "Marcus Thornton?" I asked. "Yes. My name is Eniola. I need to talk to you about your mother." His face went carefully blank. "My mother?" "Your biological mother. Lizabeth Trumpson." The book in his hands dropped to the floor. The sound echoed through the quiet library like a gunshot. "What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? Would you love to see the next part? Do well to let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories.